I will be speaking about the June 6, 2020 Black Lives Matter protest. First, it is important to know Black Lives Matter started in 2013. It is an ongoing movement to put an end to white supremacy, racial injustice, police brutality, and also the use of racial violence against minorities, brown people, and black people. The June 6, 2020 protest started with the death of George Floyd. George Floyd is a man that died under police custody, police control, and he died by the carotid control technique, which is also known as the chokehold. With the death of George Floyd came worldwide rage, worldwide protest. Many protests across our country. It was immense. And many protests for the use of police brutality and racial injustice, and it was also ongoing protests because at the time President Donald Trump decided to use the National Guard and military. He also deployed Pentagon helicopters to certain areas. With this being said, the protest continued in Atlanta, Georgia, Washington, D.C., California, and New York. The protests were so immense that certain cities had to place curfews for the residents and the people that were there protesting. With all of this going on, the George Floyd family had a private memorial service for George Floyd, and it is said to be very beautiful with lots of song and lots of prayer. Many celebrities actually ended up going to his memorial service because this was just such a worldwide tragedy. Many people that were protesting called for police reform and to defund the police. When a protester says to defund the police, what they mean is taking a little bit of the massive budgets that we give for law enforcement and police officers, take a small bit of that budget and focus it into the marginalized communities, focus it with mental health, help clinics, with domestic violence, addiction, social services, homelessness, to help the community. The police responded to these protests with lots of tear gas, lots of flashbangs, pepper spray, use of their batons, a lot of rubber bullets. Many people were injured, and also many people were arrested. Police ended up assaulting a 75-year-old man that was peacefully protesting. They knocked him over. It was 2 police officers, and they later pled not guilty, but ended up getting suspended. The protest in France and all across of Europe continued. The French people were protesting in solidarity with the United States, and the French people were also protesting for the racial injustices that were happening in France as well. An example of a racial injustice is Adama Traoré. Adama Traoré is another black man that passed away in police custody. He died the same way that George Floyd died, and they both had the same last words: "I can't breathe." In conclusion, Floyd's killer, Derek Chauvin, was charged with second-degree murder and and manslaughter. In the case of Adama Touré, the French Interior Minister Christophe Castagne banned the chokehold technique, which is also known as the carotid control technique. The Portland mayor discontinued gas in crowds, so he is not anymore allowing the use of gas in crowds and in protest. And lastly, Connecticut, California, Florida, New York State, Washington State, Chicago, Austin, Denver, Houston, Minneapolis, Phoenix, Seattle, and Washington, D.C. all banned the chokehold technique after these massive protests. Adama Touré and George Floyd both received the justice that they deserved.